This is ELIE Wiesel. We know him today as one of the most famous, if not the most famous, Holocaust survivor during World War II. The mass genocide in biggest proportions in history that we've ever seen. And something that most of us will never want to see again. Obviously, he was not only against anti-Semitism, but also against other forms of human rights abuse. Whether it is intolerance towards, say, Muslims, homosexuals, and other races that some people deem as unworthy, even though that is false, he would fight against all that. He wrote 50 plus books, the first one being ELIE Wiesel's Night, his experiences of the Holocaust during the concentration camp period. And he died in 2016, 9 years ago, approximately 9 years ago. He was born on September 30th of 1928 in this little town called Siet, which at the time was part of the Kingdom of Romania. However, by 1940, it would have been turned into Hungary. Even though it is in Europe, like in the heart of Europe, and the northernmost parts though, it was not affected by the Holocaust or the World War II as much as others did. In fact, it was a pretty peaceful town. It still had the same habits, and throughout the war, mostly, it was able to maintain those habits. Hungary was not affected too much, so by 1944, that would all change. The Hungary government was changed to a puppet government, and that kind of made a bunch of anti-Semitic laws that were similar towards the Nuremberg laws introduced in Germany during the Second World War's entrance. Even prior to that, there were a few laws as well too. Kristallnacht, the night of the broken crystals, or was it the night of the broken glass? That was all affecting the entire Europe. Hungary, however, was able to stay out of it for a while. Next thing that happened, by the time when all these laws were passed and they all got to get to their works, everyone realized that this was real. That World War II actually was happening. The Holocaust was a real thing, and that now they were part of it. ELIE Wiesel himself, during a kid years, when he was a teenager, he was able to distinguish himself by reading certain scriptures. He read the Torah, the first 5 scriptures of the Holy Bible, the Old Testament. He read the Talmud, which, as the name suggests, is the Holy Bible of the Hebrew religion. And he read this little instruction thingy called the Kabbalah. This was very, very unusual for someone his age, and according to some sort of interview that I remember, don't know which one though, he, along with 2 other boys, went ahead and asked the guy who knew the Kabbalah to teach them the Kabbalah. And he was like, yeah, sure, I'll teach you the Kabbalah. They kind of regretted that. The first one lost his mind and, get out of the class. The second one also lost his mind, and they realized both of them lost their minds. The Kabbalah classes were secret, as an FYI. After those 2 lost their minds, ELIE himself was starting to get worried that he was going to lose his mind, but he said, if it wasn't for the Germans invading, I would have also probably lost my mind. Speaking of the Holocaust and Germans invading, his family consisted of his dad, a guy named Shlomo, who was a shopkeeper in the town, and his mother, Sarah. It was said that Shlomo went ahead and gave ELIE Wiesel his love of literature, his love of Hebrew literature, as well as humanisms, while Sarah gave him the love of God, the faith of God. He had 3 siblings. They're all sisters. That's an FYI, number 2. 2 of them were older, 1 of them was younger. When they were all deported towards the concentration camps, this was what happened. The whole family was split into 2. The males on this side, which included Shlomo, the dad, and his son, ELIE Wiesel, and everyone else, the mom and the 3 sisters. What they didn't know was that this would be the last time that they saw each other. And ELIE Wiesel even said that I didn't even get to say goodbye. That was the worst thing in my entire life. As soon as the women went to the concentration camp, the mother was destroyed from existence through gas chambers. So was the youngest sibling, the sister, mainly because they were not able-bodied and were not able to provide for the Germans. However, luckily for the males, they were all able to survive, mainly because they were all able-bodied and were fit enough to work for the German, if not empire, invasion. The two older sisters were able to survive as well too. Ellie described that incident in the most complex way that I felt a bunch of emotions when I read his work Night. It was a great mix. He was able to use the words for his own advantage, not for the advantage of his readers, but for the advantage of himself. His readers might have a hard time understanding what night even means, but once you get the gist of it, you will get everything soon enough. They were transferred from the concentration camp Auschwitz to this one called Buchenwald. And Buchenwald was, well, not as good as Auschwitz. It was probably even worse, mainly because all the prisoners themselves had to trek 2 miles from Auschwitz to Buchenwald in the freezing cold. Why did they do that emergency? Well, the Russians were coming, so they all had to evacuate. The Germans had to evacuate all of their Jew prisoners so they can at least get their war effort keep going. During this trek, Solomon became very, very sick due to the cold, as well as all the sickness that surrounded him. This is Elie Wiesel, right here, in the middle bunker, the very rightmost side. He wanted to help his father the best way he could, but he couldn't. His father died almost immediately as they arrived at the Buchenwald camp. Elie Wiesel described this as saying this. He was afraid that he would die because he knew that if he died, his father would die, but he didn't know what he'd do if his father died. He didn't know if he'd die or if he'd survive. Luckily, on April 11th of 1945, he did survive. The American Third Army came in and liberated the whole camp. This is Elie Wiesel being liberated, and everyone else was being liberated as well. He was at the time 16 years old. Afterwards, in 1947, he went ahead and studied French, literature, philosophy, and psychology at the school named the Sorbonne. After studying at the Sorbonne, he started working as a journalist, eventually working for the Israeli newspaper, becoming their international correspondent. It was during this time that he refused to talk about the war, because he lost his faith in God. He just saw his God being killed. Afterwards, meeting a Nobel Prize winner that reconsidered his option, he went ahead and wrote this, Night, originally written in 1956 as an 800-something page book called And the World Remains Silent. In 1958, he condensed that book into this, Night, into a condensed version that is about 120, 30 pages long. It's readable. And all the experiences that it describes, it's all meaningful. It's one of the most go-to guides when learning about the Holocaust. It's very accurate, even if the character himself is fictional. But regardless, it is very accurate. Until the day of his death, Elie Wiesel spoke against racism, promoting his book, going ahead, telling others that teaching history is what they need. People try to forget the Holocaust, but that's not what they need. They need to remember the Holocaust, so they never do the Holocaust again. After all those things, and after writing a bunch of books in 1963, Elie Wiesel earned U.S. citizenship. He died on July 2nd of 2016. He was a great husband, father, grandfather, teacher, and he lived to bear witness towards things. He always said that you become a witness if you listen to a witness's witness. You become a witness too. That's how we say this. And that's how Elie Wiesel lived his life. He lived his life in constant fear during his childhood and his teenagehood. He was truly alone in the world. Also, he was able to reunite with his 2 older sisters. His books shared to us all the knowledge of history that we should not forget, especially the Holocaust. Speaking out against racism is not enough. We have to do something about this racism thing as well too. Elie Wiesel understood that. That was why that he wrote Night, as well as other books, mainly Holocaust literature, so he could educate all of us on what it feels like to lose faith in something you had really big faith in, or to become inhumane or treated as inhumane. You are called illegal immigrants, illegal aliens. But how can human beings be illegal? Sure, we can be more beautiful than other people, we can be more attractive than other people, but how can we be illegal? There's no such thing as an illegal human on this earth. We are all human beings. We are all human beings. We are all human beings. Repeat yourself those things 3 times into your head, as I just did. In the end, Elie Wiesel bear witness towards all of us. And if he is watching to us from the skies, even after 9 years since his death, he will be probably so proud of his children and all the work that they've done. That is the end of the biography of Elie Wiesel. I hope to see you guys soon. Until next time, Shanana, peace. Bye bye.